Welcome, welcome. I'm your host, Brian Halley, and you're listening to the Brandstanding Podcast. I'm excited to help you unlock the magic of brand strategy to supercharge your business in a way that's practical, easy, and fun. So let's dive in. Welcome to the Brandstanding Podcast. My name is Brian Halley, and here with me is my wife and co-host, the patient Emily Halley.
Hi, everybody.
Today we are doing a bonus podcast specifically on naming brands. Now, you might not think it matters too much, but in a world full of tons of information, tons of products, services, and so many ideas, naming a brand today is definitely crucial for business success. The most common struggles business owners face when naming their brand are trying to find a name that is unique or memorable or easy to pronounce, not already trademarked. That's a big one. Aligns with the brand identity, avoids negative connotations, doesn't sound too generic. It's relevant to the target audience, and also considering the potential cultural interpretations.
Wow, you thought naming your children was hard. All you have to worry about with your kids is, we don't want any ex-boyfriend, girlfriend names in the mix there, right?
Yeah,
But this is a big list of things you need to think about.
absolutely. So today, we're going to give you some tips and strategies to help you with naming in general.
All right, so first, let's talk about the power of a great name.
Okay.
So let's first talk about the power of a great name.
Okay.
A great name will help introduce your brand to people, and hopefully it will communicate something important about your business. That could be maybe what your product or service is. It could communicate something about your personality, something about what your brand values, or how you're different from the competition. Also, a strong name will help you with recognition, right? Like it'll be easier for people to remember who you are. If they can remember who you are and you sound legit, then they're going to trust you and they're going to recognize you next time they hear or see your brand. So that's really important in building a reputation and brand loyalty over time.
There's lots of things to consider when naming your brand. The first thing is clarity and simplicity. Make sure it's easy to say, it's spelled simple, and it's easy to remember. Examples for this are Dropbox. It clearly conveys what the service does. A box where you drop files.
Mhm.
Dropbox. Boom. Slack. Slack's also one. Short, memorable, easy to spell. Also aligns with its purpose, like making the workplace communication less stressful.
Like cut me some slack
Yeah,
type
cut me
of an
some
idea.
slack.
Okay.
Give me some slack. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, in addition to clarity, you also want to make sure that your name is relevant. So, does it align with your industry? Does it align with your values? Um, PayPal is an example of this that instantly communicates trust as well as ease in the online payment industry.
And it's a pal. It's your
Yeah,
friend.
it's
It's
your
your friend.
friend. Whole Foods clearly indicates its focus on natural, organic, wholesome food products.
Yeah.
So, yep.
That's relevance is important. Yeah. And that leads into like uniqueness, avoiding generic or overused words. Google did a great job at this, like a playful twist on Google, which means a massive number.
It's yeah, a really big number.
Yeah. And reinforcing its mission to organize vast information. They've done a great one. And yeah, no one was saying that word, and now we
Mhm.
all use it. Lululemon is a great one. Completely made up word that's distinctive and memorable in the athletic wear space, and they're doing really well.
Yeah. Also, a big one to think about is emotional connection.
Yeah.
So, names can often evoke feelings as well as stories. This one connects really well to our discussion of archetypes. So, if you are like an outlaw brand, for example, You want to try and find a name that's going to suggest something about an outlaw. So something that might sound a little rebellious or tied to freedom or independence or ideas like that, versus names that might sound,
Like hugs and kisses,
yeah, caring, loving,
soft and loving.
affectionate.
You won't connect with your audience
Yeah,
with names like that
right.
to that
Boring
target.
names, funny names, unless it's a rebellious funny, then yeah, it's probably not going to work very well.
Yeah, so definitely consider the archetypes when
So, for
naming.
example, let's use some big brands.
Okay.
Nike is named after the Greek goddess of victory. So the name Nike suggests hero,
Yeah, just in the
right?
name.
Yeah. Success, achievement, all of those things that come along with being a champion.
Yeah. What's another one? Let's think of like an innovative
Yeah,
company.
there's like Tesla.
Okay.
Tesla is named after a uh, what did you call it? Like an inventor, an engineer.
Scientist, inventor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that really made a lot of progress with electricity.
Yeah, Nikola Tesla.
Nikola Tesla, and so his name, on the brand just brings with it all of that.
Baggage that it had. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Electricity.
Innovation, intelligence, forward thinking, all of those things come along with it.
Fantastic. And then when you're thinking about names, uh, be aware of longevity and how this will last through time. So future proofing is what we call that.
Mhm.
Just you don't want to be just following the trends.
So, probably
Uh,
don't name a
It could
brand,
change fast.
Skibbity or something like that, right? It might not be popular next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, when we were all decorating with chevron print in our living rooms back in the, 2012s,
Uh-huh.
and now when you see someone with chevron print still on their walls, you think,
Can
"Wow,
identify
you are
right when that happened.
you are out of date. You are behind the times." So, yeah, avoid that with your brand names,
and
definitely.
and then here's the hidden one. You should always, always, always check trademarks and domains. Make sure that it's available.
Mhm.
It'll just save you so much time in the long run. I remember we launched a design firm way back when, and they didn't do their research. And so I came aboard, we launched this whole brand, color palettes, feeling, everything. And I think we were probably a year and a half into it, and we had a cease and desist order from a company that had the same name, doing the same design work in New York.
Mhm.
And so it's like nobody
Spelled
did their re
differently, right? Or no? You had to
No, it
spell yours.
was the
It
spelled
was
the
the
same,
same. Oh.
so we had to change the spelling of it, and that appeased them, but those are some things that could happen because 'cause you've already done your signage, your letterhead, I mean,
Mhm.
your email signature, like, you name it, you've done a lot of work, and then you have to go change it, it's kind of a big hassle, so just be
Yeah.
aware of that. Make
Yeah,
sure you do your
and you can
research.
do online searches
Mhm,
for trademarks, and then you can do online searches, obviously, to see what domains are available as well. But you also wanna probably look for names that are similar to yours in your same industry.
mhm,
So even if it's not exactly the same, if it could be mistaken for another brand, that would definitely be something to look at and think about.
yeah.
Okay, so going along with this idea of making sure that our names are clear and simple, we're going to talk about some of the pitfalls.
So we could mess up sometimes, so
Yeah.
let's
So
avoid
yeah.
those.
So here are the mistakes. Um, Hard to pronounce or complicated names. Here's what happens. I don't even know how to. Here's the example I found. I can't even pronounce. Okay, so it's spelled Xobni, which is inbox spelled backward.
Zobni is probably how you say it.
Zobni?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So was an email management tool, and it really struggled because people couldn't pronounce it.
They went too far on that uniqueness,
Yeah,
they
so
went too far on
is
linguistics
it
that people
Zobni or is it
didn't know.
Xobni? And you also couldn't really understand what it meant. Like, it's difficult to realize that that's inbox spelled backwards unless someone points it out to you,
Mhm.
right? So, there's an example. Another one, a sewing machine brand called Pfaff,
PFAFF? Is that how? Okay.
Pfaff. It's German, I guess. So, it's really
PFAF.
difficult really difficult for people who don't speak German to try to find that sound in their brains.
Yeah, and that could have worked in Germany. Like,
Right.
it totally would have worked, but here,
Right.
it's
Tricky to get it over to
we
another
don't put those
language.
letters in that order.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Also, let's see, names that could, limit your business growth. Pizza Hut was one that I was thinking of that kinda limits what they can do. They can't go
Mhm.
too much further than pizza because the name has pizza in it, making it harder for the company to pivot other items like pasta or wings. They're locked into Pizza Hut.
Right, because even if they have those menu items, people aren't going to think, "Oh, let's go to Pizza Hut and get some wings,"
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
It would be like an afterthought or an add-on to a pizza order. But if that's really all you're ever going to do,
Yeah.
it's great. People will
Own it.
think of you when they think of pizza.
That's great.
Yeah.
Other names that you could avoid, Radio Shack. I was thinking about Radio Shack. Initially a great name for selling radios and electronic components, right? But it became outdated as technology evolved beyond traditional radios. Like,
Yeah.
it's like
You're
names
not
in
gonna go to Radio Shack for all your Bluetooth needs.
yeah, it just kinda got outdated quickly.
Right. Also, there are cultural and linguistic things that you would need to think about if you're going to sell a product or service in another country. For example, the car Chevy Nova,
Mhm.
okay?
Okay.
In Spanish, Nova means doesn't go.
Doesn't doesn't go.
Yeah, so a Chevy Nova literally means Chevy doesn't go,
That's
which is
unfortunate.
unfortunate if you're a car.
And I know we're talking about names, but it can fall into slogans too, so you wanna make sure you know the culture and the linguistics. I remember Pepsi in China when their slogan was "Come alive with the Pepsi generation," and that was mistranslated to "Pepsi brings your ancestors back from the dead." I could see a great commercial for that. That
That
would
is
be
an
great.
incredible brand promise right there. A soda can do all that?
Wow.
Okay, and maybe at the top one of the day
Okay.
is Gerber
Mhm.
baby food. So in Africa, it is typical for packaging to show what is inside. So if you remember on a Gerber baby food jar, it's a picture of a baby face.
Uh-oh.
So this confused consumers into thinking that the jars contained baby meat.
Terrible. Be aware.
Anyway,
You can't control everything and things will happen
yeah,
out of your control, but
yeah,
yeah, you can think about it. All right. So let's go over some strategies, really some key strategies for naming, um, some techniques for brainstorming. Let's talk about that. Tools and techniques for brainstorming specifically.
yes.
Strategy one: word association and mind mapping. Emily, do you want to walk them through what word association and mind mapping is?
Yeah, so this is where we always start. So I think this is a really good place. You want to start with your core brand identity.
Okay.
So all of the stuff that you did in the first messaging phase of branding that we walked through in the initial episodes, your values, your mission, your personality, any words that have to do with your archetype, your brand promise, your product, your service. Write down all of the words that you can think of that are associated with your brand.
That's why
Okay.
we do that first. We
Yep.
will use
So
this
you
in
can use
multiple
adjectives,
areas.
you can use nouns, you can use verbs, things that you want your customers to feel, anything that comes to mind, write it down.
Okay.
Okay. So, like, for example, if you're creating a fitness brand, words like strong, movement, power, elevate, things like might come to mind, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So, write all of those down.
And then you could use free association. That's where you start with a core word related to your business, and you just branch out with related ideas.
Mhm.
You don't overthink, you just write down every word that pops into your head. You might go in one direction or another direction. If you're naming like a coffee company, begin with coffee and then expand to energy, beans, warmth, morning, ritual, steam, boost, roast, drink it with friends, a boost for the day, like all that. Just write it down. Just throw it out there.
Right. So you can start with like the list of all of the words, and then you could branch out from some of those main words and start associating other words with those words.
Hmm.
Right.
And then you come back, start working on one direction, come back, go the other direction.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Then you also want to look at synonyms. So if there are some really powerful words that you've written down about your brand, put them into a thesaurus online and look for more words that mean similar things.
I do that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, you might want to consider metaphors that align with your brand or even common idioms that might associate with your brand anywhere that your mind goes, because you're going to fill up your brain with all of these possibilities. And then as it thinks about things and makes connections, then something creative is going to come out the other side. So the more cool stuff you can put in, the more options your brain has to work with. For example, instead of fast, you could think of lightning or a cheetah or a jet or the word zoom. So think of other things that would evoke those words that are on your
Yeah.
list.
No wrong answers on
Yeah.
this one. You just write down what comes into your mind. And then you could also think in opposites and unexpected combinations that can create really striking and memorable names. Example could be sweet and savage. That could work for a bold dessert brand. And you could try blending unexpected words, forever plus note,
Mhm.
Evernote.
Well, and that's kind of where we came up with our name for the podcast too, right? Was like putting brandstanding together and then realizing like, whoa, that kind of sounds like grandstanding, but we're talking about brands. So it's kind of like a play on
Yeah,
that
and,
word.
so we looked up what grandstanding meant, and we're
Uh-huh.
like, "Oh, that's like to elevate yourself in certain situations," and you're like, "Oh, that's what you're doing with a brand." Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was not our first name. That was probably like our 54th word, and then we did like 50 after that, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And then we went back to it.
Mhm.
Okay, so you could also, similar to list making, if you think better visually, you could do a mind map. So you could put words in the center of the page and then like branch out from there, all over the place and see like how things connect and build yourself a big spider web of
Yeah,
words and ideas.
and there's something about like that's the one with the circle in the middle, you start with a word and then
Yeah.
do another circle one direction. There's something about actually doing it on paper, like using a pen or pencil and paper and doing it physically. Like you could do it digitally, and that if that works for you, that's fine. There's something about how the mind works of writing it
Yeah,
and moving
I
quickly that
agree.
way. Yeah.
I agree. I always need to write it as well.
Yeah. All right. Playing with language and sounds, that's always fun. Try alliterations. Coca-Cola, Best Buy. Try rhyming like StubHub, YouTube, or short and punchy like TikTok or Zoom. You can mix up prefixes and suffixes like Spotify, Shopify, Grammarly. Play with the sounds
Yeah.
and the languages.
And test them out. So keep saying the word out loud. Does it roll off the tongue? Is it going to be hard for other people to say? Check for the domain and availability, like we mentioned before.
Mhm.
And also, you might want to get some feedback from your target audience
Yeah.
before you commit.
Yeah. Have like a top 3 or 4, and then, boy, let those sit overnight. Let them sit for a week. See where they're at after you're emotionally excited about a name that you came up with. "Ah, this is the one." Do some testing there. Alright, strategy 2 could be foreign words and meanings. So choose a language that fits your brand identity. Um, yeah, foreign words. Different languages evoke different feelings. Like French has more of an elegance and luxury, and you can think of the names like, Chanel or L'Oreal, Renault. Italian has more passion and craftsmanship, like Veneto or Ferrari. Japanese, that simplicity and minimalism. You have Sony and Roku. There's Latin, like it's timeless and authoritative, like Verizon, from the word veritas. Acer, from sharp in Latin, which is cool. That's some of the things you can consider when naming as different languages.
And then from there, you can use words that resonate with your brand's meaning. Find words that align with your product or your service, or emotions that you're trying to get across. So, for example, Zappos uh, comes from the word zapatos, which is Spanish for shoes. Haagen-Dazs is made up but inspired by Danish words, and this gives the ice cream like a premium European type of a feel.
That's funny. It feels that way. Yeah, when you say
And
it.
Lululemon, is kind of exotic and playful at the same time.
Okay. Yeah. And you can adapt and modify words, sometimes tweaking the original word, making it easier to pronounce for trademark purposes, maybe making it simpler. Um, so
Um,
examples are Panera. It uses the Spanish word pan, which equals bread, and then the Latin word era, which equals time. So you have Panera. A,
bread time.
Volvo does it as well. Latin uses Volvo, which means I roll. Perfect fit for automobile
That's
brand.
awesome. I didn't know that. Now
I
I want
roll.
one.
You, we be rolling, and they be hating.
Awesome.
Nike, we've talked about that before. Just the Greek goddess of victory
Mhm.
conveys that athletic success. So those consider that.
And then be careful of pronunciation again. So we wanna make sure that, people are gonna be able to say the word, especially if it's from a foreign language,
Yeah,
and check for unintended meanings. Sometimes your words can accidentally mean something offensive without you knowing. So be careful with that and that it aligns with your audience's perception.
excellent. All right. Strategy 3 is using what we have available today. AI and brand name generators actually work really well. They can kind of speed up the process. I had someone say once that AI is like having a million interns at your fingertip. I mean, you wouldn't use the finished work that comes from it, but you can use it to spawn ideas. I,
Yeah, I think it's a really great jumping off point, and we've used it pretty extensively as well.
where can they go for like some name generators that would help them in this area?
Okay, so there is a Shopify business name generator, which is good for e-commerce brands.
Okay.
There's something called Namelix. That's Namelix,
All right.
which uses AI to generate short brandable names based on keywords.
Powerful.
There's one called Brand Bucket that suggests unique available names with the domain. So that
Mhm.
might save you some steps. And then there's one called Squad Help, which crowdsources name ideas with AI backed suggestions. So I guess that would help you get instant customer feedback on names.
All right. And then gives AI strong input for better results when you're typing that in. So you want to start with the keywords that reflect your brand identity, mission, and industry. Give them as much as you can.
Mhm.
Include that tone. Include style or preferences. Like, is it playful or luxury or techie? Like, dial that in. If you're launching a fitness app, try keywords like motion, power, elevate, transform to generate the unique AI driven names. I think that's smart
Yeah.
these days.
Yeah. Yeah. And like ChatGPT will actually understand what you mean when you say that you are trying to get across an outlaw story or an outlaw archetype. So you can
Yeah.
put in your keywords and your product or service and say that you are an outlaw brand archetype and it will
It will
consider that
it
in
will get
its
you.
recommendations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it gets that.
which is amazing. AI can also combine words that would work, suggest alternative spellings, and it can check domain and trademark availability really quickly.
What's great is AI will never complain about overtime.
That's
It'll just
true.
do it. All right. Make sure you validate and refine AI generated names. Say it out loud.
Yeah.
Make sure it sounds natural and memorable. Check for linguistic issues and then just get human feedback.
Yeah. So AI plus human creativity is going to give you the best results.
Yay.
Yeah. We
Brandstanding.
can work together. We can coexist. Awesome. Okay, so let's go over what we've talked about today.
Okay.
Mostly, we want to make sure that the name that you come up with for your brand communicates something essential, something important about who you are. You also want your name to be clear, easy to pronounce, and memorable. And make sure that it's not trademarked and there's no similar names being used in your industry.
Great. And then practical steps to start the naming process is start by making a list of words from your brand brief. What are the key words associated with your brand? And which ones are the most important? Like, start thinking about other words that capture similar meanings.
And then make sure that you test, refine, and get feedback on your name. And this can take a while. Your brain, like I said before, it's going to keep working on the problem even when you're not thinking about it. You'll notice that you start to see words, make connections, and eventually your brain's going to figure it out. I think it helps to take breaks, like do a little bit of brainstorming, put it away, come back to it in a few days and see what still sounds good and see what other new ideas that you have.
That is incredible advice. I do that even with my designs where you get in the mix of it and you come back and you just see things. You see things a little more clearer by giving
Mhm.
that brain a rest, but you also have your subconscious mind has solved things for you while you're sleeping.
Yeah.
Well, that concludes this episode. Please comment to reach out with any questions on naming. Please let us know how we can help in your branding journey. Let us know what questions you have. And if you're finding our content helpful, please subscribe, leave us a review, or rate the podcast. This helps us reach more people trying to build their brands. So join us next week.
Join us next week as we move into the second phase of the branding process and begin to uncover brand identity. Basically, how fonts, visuals, colors, etc., all come together to beautifully communicate a message to the customer. We can't wait to see you there.
Great. And until next time, keep dreaming big. My name is Brian Halley.
And I'm Emily Halley. Take care.